My story starts off at the beginning of summer break. I go to a college in Atlanta, but me and a friend of mine were planning on going to Florida for about a week or so. I personally hate staying in hotels for more than a few days due to the lack of privacy and just not having things like a stove to cook on, so my friend suggested that we get an Airbnb. I had never gotten an Airbnb, but from the reviews I was sold. After a few hours of searching, we found the perfect place. It looked nice, was under our budget, and the owner said he'd be out so we didn't have to share it with someone we didn't know. The next week we headed to Florida and arrived at the house, and it looked just like the pictures posted, if not better. We both made our way to our rooms and settled in before going out. I'm gonna spare you with the details of how the vacation went for the most part, but on day 4, after continuous days of going out, drinking and partying, I felt sick and exhausted. I was puking like crazy and could not stay out of the bathroom for less than an hour. I was pretty much just hungover, but at the time I felt horrible. After a while, my friend went out for me to try to get some medicine, and I had pretty much locked myself in the bathroom to throw up. While this bathroom was closed off, the lights were crazy powerful, and at this point I had a severe migraine and was completely weak. So I decided to turn them off and just lay on the floor just in case I had to puke again. I turned them off and put a towel on the floor before laying beside the toilet, but that's when I saw this small red light coming from the vent across from the toilet. The light was so small that I could hardly see it and likely wouldn't if it wasn't for the angle I was laying. I instantly jumped up and headed over to the vent but couldn't reach it, so I went out and got a stool and also my phone to use as a flashlight. I pointed inside the vent, and of course, clear as day, pointing directly at the toilet was a camera. I jumped off of the stool and ran out of the house, and at this point my friend was pulling in. I told her everything, and before calling the cops, me and her walked around the house just looking for any cameras we can find, and found 4 others, 3 in vents and 1 in the shower head. The police came and investigated, and they supposedly found over 12 cameras in the house. We tried to contact the person who posted the ads but never got a response, and every trace of the ad was removed from the site. This experience is something that always makes me feel completely disgusted. The fact that we had lived in that house for days, we ate there, got changed there, showered there, and took care of all of our needs there for a whole week. Knowing some random guy recorded it all puts a knot in my stomach each time I think about it. I really just want to tell this story to people to warn them about being vigilant. There are some really sick people in this world that will do anything to get what they want. Is based in California. Because of my line of work, it's not uncommon for me to have to travel to other places for things such as meetings and company overviews. This was one of those times. I had to travel to Nevada in order to meet some people and do some other work-related things. This would take me a little over a week, and at this point I had pretty much used Airbnb a numerous amount of times, since a lot of times they offered a lot more than your average hotel. I found this place that was letting multiple people rent. It was a 5-bedroom house that was kind of treated like a hotel. What I meant by this is the person offering it was always there and let multiple people rent at once. I was new to a situation like this, but at the time I knew that I would be at the house for less than 8 hours a day, since my only purpose with it was to sleep. And it was the closest house to where my meetings would be held, so I decided to do it. On the day in question, I arrived to the house, met the landlord, and then met the 3 other guests. One was a girl named Jenny who was meeting family, and the other 2 was 2 guys named Harold and Leo who came together and were on vacation. At this point, nothing really felt off to me. Everybody was nice and nothing was weird or creepy, so I made it over to my room, unpacked, and left for my first meeting. When I got back, it was way later, around 12 to be exact, and I was exhausted. I quickly made it to my room, showered, and went to bed. In the middle of the night, I felt some tapping on my door. It was like slow, tiny knocks. I woke up and called out, "Who's there?" And that's when Harold opened the door and peeked in. He looked completely wasted and could barely stand. "Do you have food?" he said as he stumbled in. "No," I said quickly as I rushed off the bed and to the other side of the room to avoid him. That's when Leo rushed in, grabbing Harold and apologizing profusely before dragging him away. This whole thing kind of startled me. I knew he was drunk and probably didn't mean to scare me, but he really did. I went up to my door and this time locked it before laying back down, trying to go back to bed. After a while of sleeping, I woke up to the sound of childish giggling. I immediately sat up, and there, standing at the door once again, was Harold. I was in a daze and completely confused, since I knew I had locked the door. I just stared at him, and he stared back in complete silence until he finally said, "You look beautiful while you sleep. I really enjoy watching." I said nothing and just continued to stare at him. He then said, "Go back to sleep," before giggling like a schoolgirl and continuing to watch me. I really didn't know what to do. He didn't even sound drunk at this point, just super weird. I don't know why I did it, but I just laid back in bed and pretended to be asleep. It was around 5 at this point, so I only had 4 hours until I had to be up and getting ready. As I laid there, all I heard was his small childlike giggles. I pretty much cried myself back to sleep. The next day I woke up and he was gone. I hurriedly got packed and dressed and left that house and never looked back. I know this isn't your typical ghost story, and Harold could have very much just been drunk, but that night was one of the most horrifying nights of my life. Even if nothing really happened and I just happened to room with a creep who liked to watch people sleep, the overall fear of the unknown is just something that is overwhelming. I'm not saying that you should be scared of every little thing, but I do feel like you need to always have your life and well-being at the top of your priority list. Trying to always take the easy way or spend less money and so on can be useful at times, but it can also lead you in a house with Harold. And unless you like demonic giggling, you don't want that.